cane toads were brought to Australia more than 70 years ago. And now with 1.5 billion of these toxic toads swarming over the country, they've become the animal we most love to hate or even to kill. Here's how a new movie, Cane Toads: The Conquest, puts it.
1935, 102 cane toads are shipped to Australia to eliminate the beetles that are destroying the sugarcane crops.
The toad did nothing whatsoever to eliminate the beetle problem.
What we do is we put them straight into a bag in the freezer.
Certainly, if the toads come to the territory, they should expect some tough treatment.
I've got a bloody toad in my freezer.
Joining me now is the film's director, Mark Lewis. Mark, this film builds on your cult documentary in 1988 in which you showed people finding bizarre, fresh ways to kill a beast that we in the media are showing as the greatest imported menace since the rabbit or white settlers even. But something happened when you made this movie. It seemed to me that you fell in love.
Yeah, to some degree. I don't know if I'd call it love, Andrew, but I'd certainly say I've been made more compassionate by the toad. And what I mean by that is that I've had a long history looking at the animal, and, you know, certainly as a filmmaker, you imbibe all of the information from the different scientists and what have you, and I think it's getting an unfair go. It's getting a lot of vitriol thrown at it. I think that's unfair. So if anything, what I've tried to do is point out some of the contradictions and some of the ironies.
You're pleading for a more compassionate society. I saw that side of you in this particular scene here.
Toads are quite beautiful creatures. They've got this nice protruding brow, and below it you have these quite stunning eyes, golden, black, flecked, and they're quite pleasant to look at. You can just stare into them. Sometimes you feel like you could fall into them.
Now, it seems to me you're arguing that we should now learn to live with the cane toad, show more compassion to these immigrants.
Saying is, by default, I've come to the conclusion we have to learn to cohabit with them or live with them. I mean, essentially what I found is that no matter what we as a government or what the community groups or what individuals have done to remove or control the cane toad, it hasn't worked. And so by default, I'm saying, well, look, there's nothing we can do. And what I'm saying is...
Embrace the toad.
Embrace the toad, or maybe just learn to live with it. I think some of the studies have also shown that, you know, with natural selection and nature being the way it works, that, you know, a harmony or a balance can be restored.
Well, it's interesting too. I think in some ways the cane toad has become one of us. It's become very Australian. Our hatred of it seems to have made it more Australian than anything else.
Well, yeah, you could say that, and, you know, it's certainly become an extraordinary icon, and it's not only an icon in its own right, but it's a social icon, a cultural icon. I mean, even the Queenslanders named their state of origin rugby league team after the cane toads, and so you'd have to say, which would you prefer, a cane toad or a cockroach?
No, look, Mark, I actually see it as a powerful metaphor, the way we are embracing the other. And as a keen gardener, I've hated the eco-fascism that says anything imported, whether it's azaleas or the willows, should be expunged from our environment. So thank you very much for sticking up to the cane toads. You're my hero.
Thank you very much.
On Monday, the ABC showed Australian cattle being brutally slaughtered in Indonesia. Now, most of the shots are too shocking to show you here, but Agriculture Minister Joe Ludwig called for an inquiry, which is what governments do to sit out a storm. Not good enough for Labor backbenchers in Tuesday's caucus meeting. They forced Ludwig to slap bans on Indonesia's worst abattoirs. But watch Ludwig trying not to admit he'd been railroaded.
Was the decision made to suspend trade made after caucus?
It was made, well, there's a range of options available to me. I undertook to, obviously I went to caucus to find the views of caucus. I think it's important that I do share this issue with caucus. During caucus, I come to the conclusion that there was an important issue to move to suspend.
Thin spin. It's interesting, though, that Labor backbenchers finally rebelled about something. Now, imagine if they got as angry about the government sending children to Malaysia as about farmers sending cattle to Indonesia. Unreported fact. This week's terrible growth figures showed us our future, if the Greens get their way. You see, Greens leader Bob Brown wants to scrap our coal exports, worth $55 billion a year, to stop global warming.
We should look at coal exports with a view to phasing them out down the line.
This week's growth figures showed our economy between January and March slumping a huge 1.2%. The biggest reason we went backwards is that the summer floods temporarily stopped the coal exports that Bob Brown wants stopped permanently. No coal exports, no growth. A Greens policy in action. The biggest issue in Canberra this week was Finance Minister Penny Wong being meowed. Yes, how trivial our politics must seem to politicians overseas. Take New Zealand's Finance Minister Peter Dunne. He, this week, showed Wong that New Zealand takes its politics more seriously. Maybe he was just demonstrating New Zealand's economic performance. And that's the show. Thanks for watching. Now please join our debate by sending me an email here at 10. The address is below, and there's also my blog. Meet the Press is next with Paul Bongiorno. I'm Andrew Bolt, and I'll see you here at the same time next week. Goodbye.